My name is James Williams Jr. This is Kung Fu Havoc number 2. I'm going to attempt for the fifth and final time to make this video. It's more than likely going to be a two-parter. It is about how racism affects everyone around the world. I'm going to tell a couple of stories. You're going to enjoy them. This is indubitably not for children. It is very touchy. And before I do this, first let me put some condolences out there for the people that this affected, whose children have passed, because I am going to touch on that one child who went to North Korea. So, racism is probably worse in America than it is anywhere else, and I made some videos about that, and I've touched on how black cops and black men have messed it up for black people. I've touched on how white people have messed it up for white people, and how they are racist towards their own just as racist as they are to our own, just as racist as black people are to black people. Now, the only places that I've rarely seen too much racism in America are Asians toward Asians, because most of my Asian friends are of different Asian ethnicities in different Asian countries, and they all seem to be peaceful with each other despite their countries' wars. People from Korea versus people from Japan versus people from China, people from Nepal. I know a lot of Asians from certain places, and they don't seem to have that same tendency that their countries have while they're here. Now, I'm not going to say that it's not highly possible that some Japanese people are treated differently than Chinese people by Americans in general, due to that whole Pearl Harbor clusterfuck thing. And the same can be said for other Asian ethnicities, and that including Native Americans. But everyone that has a racist incident, I try to be as fair as possible when I make videos about racism. So this is Omega level racism, which means I'm covering everything that I've ever read about racism, and I'm going to offend people, I'm going to hurt feelings, and I want to get this out the way right now. So in America, racism has really hit its pinnacle 2 years ago here in Charlottesville, when we had a basic racist riot with the loss of 2 police officers and the loss of a young lady named Heather Heyer, who was an anti-protester against the alt-right movement. The alt-right movement had some young dude from either Ohio or Kentucky or Tennessee or wherever the hell Mr. Fields is from, who plowed through a pile of people, blacks and whites alike, injuring thousands, killing one. It was some bullshit that didn't need to happen. No, it really didn't need to happen, and it goes to show that we, as people, are in more danger from people who look like us versus people who don't look like us, with the exception of Mr. Fields plowing through these people who he assumed was mostly black people. However, he did happen to kill a young white lady named Heather Heyer, which is really fucked up that he decided to come all the way from Ohio or Tennessee or buttfuck Africa, Egypt, wherever the hell he came from, through whatever time warp he done come through here, and decided that he wanted to be a martyr for a group of racists that really can't back him up now that he's in prison for like 2 or 3 life sentences. And that's like just the state alone. And then he has federal charges, which again is life sentences, and they're looking to probably add the death penalty. This was on the news at least 3 weeks ago, and I haven't been able to keep up with it because I've had other things going on in my life that I needed to address. Alright, moving on. While we're in America still, about maybe 2 years ago, during Mr. Fields' case, there was a young kid who was a university student. I can't actually pronounce his name, but he had a really odd name, and he went to Korea. And the people who he went to Korea with was like a church group, and they did not prepare him about the laws, the rules, and regulations of North Korea. So he apparently snatched down a propaganda poster. And the Korean authorities did not like that, and they sentenced him to hard labor. Well, he later would return home after, I think, a year and a half in prison because he had passed into a coma, and he came home and he passed away. To that family, my condolences. But this does affect that family. And yes, they were white people. This does affect that family the same way that it affects everyone else on this planet. Racism is something that we can work on. We all just technically choose not to do it. Now, as far as the North Korea thing, the people that he went to Korea with are solely responsible for the simple fact that they didn't tell him, don't touch anything. If you want to take a picture, you're fine. You should be able to take pictures wherever you go. You know, and even though some people don't want you taking pictures and they'll snap your camera and destroy everything, it's a lot better for them to snap your camera and destroy anything before you are sentenced to hard labor. And these are places that I have no intention of ever visiting for the simple fact that if I don't know your laws, I really don't want to go there. Many, many years back, when I was a young man, and I'm a little older than the guy who did this that I'm about to talk about, there was a young man who went with his family to Indonesia. And I'm pretty sure it was Indonesia because I swear it was Jakarta, but you guys can fact check it. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was like 15. And his family had diplomatic immunity, his parents were diplomats, and he decided to go over there. It wasn't Indonesia, I'm sorry, it just dawned on me. It was Singapore. So he went to Singapore, and he decided to Captain America the shit out of people's cars by taking stop signs off of their stands and humming them, that's another word for throwing, through the windows of cars, and he destroyed a whole city block full of cars. And the government in Singapore were having a debate on how he was going to get punished, because his parents had diplomatic immunity did not mean he had diplomatic immunity, and he was a juvenile, which was pretty much a big fucking problem. Now, the Singapore government said that there's no way in hell they're going to let him leave without being punished for the damage that he'd done to all these people's property. He did some very serious damage. He broke windows, he smashed up stereos, and all kinds of other stuff that might have been over-exaggerated, but they showed the video of the aftermath. They didn't show the video of him doing it, but they showed the video of the aftermath. The final car on the block still had the stop sign in it. And I don't know how it led back to him, so there must have been a witness somewhere that reported him in. By the end of the situation, he got caned. Alright? The government had to placate the Singapore government because he really did a lot of damage. You know, he literally just thought that he could do whatever the hell he wanted, so he did. And he paid for it, thinking that he had diplomatic immunity like his parents. He didn't think that he could get in trouble, which, racially speaking, he was a young white boy who got a hold of, I can do whatever the fuck I want, and he learned that, no, you cannot. Now, I'm sure he has grown up and has learned from that mistake, and if he has not, my condolences to him. Because I have been hit learning martial arts with some of those damn cane things, and they are not fun. They don't have a lot of give. You know, when you get hit by something like that, you are going to know it. It looks like a kendo stick, you know, but it's probably a whole lot worse. And they didn't use a whip, they used a cane. Because that was the punishment. He got 3 lashes or more from the cane. Again, I apologize for bringing that up to that young man, and I apologize to his family, the same as I apologize to the family of the young man who died in Korea. But you have to understand, when you go visit other people's countries, you are a guest there. You are privileged to be there, and you don't have a lot of rights in foreign countries because you're not a citizen of that country. So you need to respect their laws and behave yourselves. Now I'm going to take us all the way around from Singapore up to China. In the more recent years, we've had a few people of color go to China with a few incidences. Alright? Now, not like back in Korea with Lisa Ling's sister, where that was an incident where she didn't even consciously know she broke the law by stepping over whatever zone it was, and then they had her arrested. And my video is being destroyed because no one sees my damn lights. My lights! Anyway, so the whole principle of that, sorry for the interruption, I done gone too far to delete this video. So the thing about that was Lisa Ling's sister inadvertently broke the law, where the young man inadvertently broke the law, but it was more harsh. Lisa Ling's sister was also sentenced, but she wasn't sentenced to hard labor, and eventually there was some political ruffling, and we got her back. By the grace of God, we got her back healthy and unharmed. Now, we're going back down to China. So in China, some black basketball players, they went over there, and they owed their future to Trump. They decided that they wanted to steal some sunshades out of one of those expensive-ass sunshade stores. I don't remember the name. I think it was Louis Vuitton's or some shit. But they were children of rich black people. They were black kids who did something exceptionally stupid, which is probably still having ramifications for black people who are moving up to China from Africa and back and all the other stuff. And there are people of color and Americans and Europeans living in China and working in China, and they haven't given up their citizens, but they have their visas and they're working and they're doing their jobs. But all it takes is for one person to make a mistake, a person of color, to just fuck it up for everybody in the world. And these three young black men who had money, they came from money, decided that when we go over to China, we're just going to steal these Louis Vuittons. We're not going to pay for that shit. We're rich. We don't need to pay for that shit. And there you go. Now let's bring it on back around. This works in reverse because there has been some Asian backlash in Africa for Asians moving to Africa and running in and out of Africa. And then there have been Asians who have been running in and out of Africa that have been evil to Africans. You see where I'm going with this? As long as there's a problem with people's race, there's going to be a problem, period. And in these countries, when you have racism that is systemic or outright outlandish, these things happen. And how they affect the people in the world changes the world. Alright? When the young black ballers went to China and started doing all the dumb shit when they could have just paid for the glasses, they were held there. They were held there for a while and they were confined to their hotel rooms instead of confined to jail. The red-headed demon seed in charge of our country went over there, finagled a little bit, and got these three young black guys out. Alright? Respectfully, I understand that. He did his job. He just paid them for their food. That's pretty much how that works right there. Now, as you go farther down, there aren't too many issues with racism in Japan outside of Japan and Japan, and things like that. And then you have to go back over into Russia, and you have some racist incidents there. But things were handled differently. It did not involve Americans, but it did involve certain Russians and other things, and people didn't really pay too much attention, but it came across Top Buzz a couple of times. Now, technically, when you do something in another country and you own it and you have to pay for it, you should have probably thought about that before you got to that country. Racism is broad around the world. It's no deeper than it is in America, because in America, racism is at the highest level of I hate you, and anything is basically classified as a hate crime, especially when you're walking through the streets of New York with a brick and hitting white people. Making it harder for black people in America in general without consciously thinking of the consequences of your actions toward other people. When you decide, hey, fuck it, I'm going to fuck up these white people, and I'm not going to worry about what happens to the rest of the black community because they got to catch me. But eventually they will catch you. And they caught this guy, by the way, but if they do catch you or if they don't catch you, every other young black man who's never broken the law, have never done anything, will have ill feelings toward the cops because you got us harassed. You got us picked on. You got us arrested because we all look alike. So when you're thinking about things like that, this is how this shit works. And I'm pretty sure, like in Asia, where there's nothing but Asians and a few Europeans and a few Americans and a few black people from Africa and America working there, they will never be looked at again because of the three guys who stole fucking Louis Vuitton glasses when they could have just simply paid for them and walked out. And now the damage is done. So now you have Asians looking at blacks from Africa, looking at blacks from America, and they no longer give a damn if we're not that guy, but they do give a damn that we are capable of doing the same damn shit. And that systemically also transfers back over to America when black people go into Asian stores, and then you hear the stereotypical, I don't want to trouble, get out of my store. Sorry for that horrible ass Asian accent, but you get that. So when you get that, you have those problems. And all of them are triggered by actions of other people. And the actions of other people spawn what happens to other people. When you haven't done anything wrong, but let's just say you walk in a store where a guy who is black, who's basically the same kind of guy you are, who wears the same kind of outfit that you are, goes in and steals something, and then they catch you coming back in because the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. That's all it takes. Even if you didn't do it, and I've had this happen to me. Someone who basically was wearing the same kind of shit, came into a store, took some shit, and I came in to buy some shit, and they accused me of stealing shit. I was like, dude, I just got in this fucking store. And then someone else says, yeah, he just came in the store because they came in right behind me. He just got out of his car. Now, did we see who left the store? Hell no. Because when I'm driving my car, I look one way. I look at the road. If I'm going to park in a parking lot, I look where I'm parking. I don't pay attention to everything that goes around in the store or coming in and out of the store. Unless it's got a pair of boobs and a nice butt. That's the last thing I'm looking at, you know. So when I go in a store and someone's like accusing me of doing something, I'm like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? I just got here. Henceforth, that thing about all black people looking alike, or all Mexicans looking alike, or all Asians looking alike, or all white people looking alike, we don't. None of us all look alike. We all have our individual faces unless by the grace of God you were born an identical twin. But your actions affect what happens to me when I go into a store. My actions will affect what happens to you when you go into a store. And we have to accept that, and we have to get along. But we don't. And we just don't give a damn until it comes and punches you in the face. It's not like you care. And that happens more often than not, that no one really gives a shit until it affects them directly. As Dr. King says, what affects you indirectly will affect you directly on some level or another. And that is the truth. There we have global racism. Now I'm going to make a second video because people are being loud and you probably didn't hear anything I said in the 16 minutes that I've been talking.